Hello, and welcome to the Arbitration Conversation. So in this conversation, we're going to be talking with Stephen Kae. Stephen Kae is the mastermind behind Fair Claims. Fair Claims is a new online dispute resolution platform that is really taking storm and trying to expand access to justice. So I'm really excited to have Stephen here and taking the time to talk with us today about Fair Claims. So Stephen, thank you.
Likewise. Thanks for having me, Amy. Excited to be here too.
Well, one of the first things I always like to ask is I would love to hear about your journey. What made you interested in online dispute resolution, and how did you become the creator of this new process and really sort of taking the plunge and the risk in getting into this area?
It's true. It is a big risk. It's hard work. Legal adoption takes time, and this is not like other industries. Every startup has to start a flywheel, and it always takes a lot of energy to start that flywheel. I would say it's 10x or more when it comes to legal tech. It's just what it is. There's a lot of inertia. We're an industry that believes in respecting precedent. We're a risk-averse bunch, and so it is risk, but it's also fun and exciting. And I don't know. I can't imagine doing anything else than something like this. But, the answer is I didn't plan on it. In fact, I had read about ODR in law school, and I thought it was an interesting concept, but it didn't seem practical to me. I couldn't see how it would work. It was so foreign versus everything else we were taught in law school. So foreign to the TV shows and movies we watch. So foreign to, I think, most people's concept of how you would litigate, resolve disputes, whatever. So, but I did think it was interesting. It stuck with me in the back of my head, very far in the back of my head. And then fast forward, I started my own legal practice at some point. So I went to a big law firm after law school. I was in-house counsel. I did business. I joined different startups, including Lex Machina and other startups like that. I did a little contracting work for Case Text. And, I think that was a valuable part of the journey, even though there was no plan behind it. To see law from different aspects, to see different stakeholders, how they think about their jobs, the incentives they have, that's really key, including how they make their money. Lawyers don't necessarily always want to be more efficient. So ODR is not necessarily appealing to all lawyers. Now, it depends on the lawyer. If they're busy and they have plenty of clients and they're looking for ways to help their clients, sure.
Right.
Corporations don't necessarily want to be more efficient. So anyway, it started when I had my own legal practice, and I was representing small businesses and startups. And I did that for some years. And I would do that either part-time or full-time because I took on different roles alongside it. It was just interesting, fun, fulfilling work because you're helping these entrepreneurs, right? And I had been an entrepreneur out of college. I tried my hand at a couple startups, and I went to college at a time when the first .com frenzy hit the world. And then I saw the .com bubble burst. And in law school, I used to talk about startups all the time. And people said, hey, startups are dead. The industry's dead. This was like circa 2004 or something like that. But in any case, when I had my own legal practice, I would get a number of calls from people with small claims disputes that they didn't know what to do about. And it would be landlord-tenant. It would be breach of contract, small breach of contract. And they were frustrated because they didn't want to go to small claims court because they didn't know what to do. I got the sense they were intimidated by the prospect of it, and it is intimidating. You go in this room, you're in front of a judge. It could be a commissioner or whatever, part-time lawyer, a lawyer doing it part-time, but you're in front of a lot of other people. You're not comfortable with the law. Most people aren't comfortable with public speaking. There's a lot of red tape. It takes 2 to 3 months to get a hearing, at least in California. So people kind of didn't want to do that. Most consumers or small business owners don't, unless they've had an attorney before, don't necessarily think about how much an attorney costs. So they would call me and think, hey, can you solve this problem? Someone owes me $2,000. Maybe it's an unpaid invoice, whatever. So I saw this gap, and I would get 3 to 4 to 5 calls a month. And I only spent $600 a month on advertising. I got clients in a lot of different ways, but it's not like I was some big machine. So this was a high percentage of the calls I was getting. And I thought that there's got to be a solution to help these people. And then I just got obsessed with it. I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And it just kind of happened. I didn't plan on raising VC money or anything. That just kind of happened too. I happened to be tinkering around with it at a time when VCs wanted to give startups, like it was a good time for entrepreneurs to raise money, and one thing led to another. But it was just this obsession. I think that's what it is. I think if you're not obsessed with a legal tech concept, definitely don't do it, because it's really, really, really hard. I think Elon Musk recently said that being an entrepreneur is like eating glass and staring into the abyss. I think he's understating it, especially in legal tech. So this is not to discourage anyone. This is to tell you that only do it if you're obsessed. But there's many ways you could get obsessed, because there's many flaws in the legal system.
Right, right. No, I mean, and absolutely, you're right. The other point you made earlier, which I think is really important, especially as a law student, right? All you do is you sort of, everything is from the litigation lens, right? It's all about reading cases and very doctrinal and thinking about what would a court do. And you sort of forget about this whole area of what happens in the real world when someone has a problem. Right. And what you're talking about and your frustration with these clients, I get it. I mean, I had done this research on just the squeaky wheel system is what I call it. But the idea that you got to be, it's the needle in the haystack is the one who actually brings this stuff to court, just because it's so expensive, and hiring an attorney and paying the attorney per hour often wipes out any amount that you actually would obtain in a judgment. So when you get to this point where you're ready to eat glass and you're jumping into the fray, how do you start out, and how did you kind of begin the process, and then what does Fair Claims actually do?
I couldn't agree more with you, by the way, on the practice of law being totally different than the theory of law. In the real world, money and power matter. In the real world, big corporations who can afford attorneys have a much bigger voice in the court system than your everyday average person and small business owner. People talk about, IP and owning a patent. And the reality is, if you own a patent, that's only good if you're able to pay an attorney to enforce on the patent. If you have a trademark, same thing. We're not taught as much of that in law school, but that's how it actually works. But anyway, we could talk about that all day long, because I think that's at the heart of probably the reason all of us are obsessed with this, right?
Oh yeah, 100%, absolutely, yeah.
So sorry, I forgot your question because I'm so.
Oh, right. No, but once you get into the idea and you're ready to create a process, right? You think, okay, I mean, you're going to obviously think about dispute system design, because I already heard you talking about cost and stakeholders and goals. But how do you actually start building it, and kind of what do you have now in terms of Fair Claims as a product?
Yeah, well, like with any startup, I think you start by talking to as many people as possible. So some people, when they're starting something new, are protective of their idea. The idea is good. That's good to have a good idea, but it's really about execution, and you can't be afraid to talk about your ideas. There are some cases, there are some times where people steal ideas. That happens all the time. But it's about who does it better. It's about who does it better. Because if that weren't true, then Friendster and MySpace, people listening might not even know what those platforms are, but they were started before Facebook. They'd still be dominant. It's about who does it better. So it's about focusing on how you can build the very best product. And that means talking to as many people as you can to understand how they think about what the problem is, how they think about the problem, and then brainstorming solutions. And then it's just a feedback loop. You just iterate on the product, and you literally just start by talking to anyone you can. It depending on what you're doing, if the end user will be a lawyer, you need to talk to as many lawyers as you can. If the end user is a consumer, you need to talk to as many consumers as you can. But it also helps just to talk to friends, just to get the ideas out there, get feedback. Hey, what do you think about this? And I guarantee you that when you first start talking about your vision in your head, you're going to have trouble articulating it, probably. I mean, I did. I think a lot of founders do. You're not sure quite, you can't crystallize it. Talking about it helps. Getting feedback from people, questions help, right? So like you're saying, all right, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. I'm going to, start a dog daycare, whatever. And then people ask you questions. Well, where's the dog daycare going to be? Oh, I didn't think about that. Oh, how much are you going to charge? I need to think about that. Oh, what's the profit going to be? So it's literally talking to anyone and everyone. And then the way I got started is I started doing that. And then I just put up a very bad website. Like it was, I think it was a Weebly, nothing wrong with Weebly, but I think it was like a Weebly website. It was just words. It was like almost like a manifesto. Like it wasn't anything, but it was just, I put something up so that people would react to it. And then I just and then I built a Squarespace site, and I did a lot of our early arbitrations manually. And it's all about the learnings and perfecting the process and the product, and learning like what makes people tick, what makes somebody sign up for dispute resolution, what makes somebody satisfied with the outcome or not, what makes them bought in and believing in having confidence in what you're doing, things like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, user-centric design. I mean, my students are so sick of me talking about it, but it's really important. You have to think about who's actually using this system. Who are the stakeholders, who are the users, and really understanding it. So I love hearing about that kind of, I often talk about the sort of 3 R's. You've got to research, find out what works, then revise the process in light of your research, and repeat, because you got to keep doing it until you can improve that process. So that brings us to kind of the process. So what is it that you've come up with? I heard you say the word arbitration, so it sounds as though that's definitely included. So could you describe, what is Fair Claims?
Well, we're a full stock ODR platform, right? So we have various modules, from intake to case assessment to settlement modules, mediation, and arbitration. But the bulk of what we have done and what has stuck and been most successful is our digital arbitration platform, and currently focused on claims $25,000 and below, although we'll be expanding soon. But that's the bulk of what we've done. I think we have a broad vision. I think we were talking before we started recording that dispute resolution is much broader than just arbitration or mediation. I mean, even information resolves disputes. You're arguing with somebody about what movie a movie star was in, and then you look at IMDb. Okay, we resolved it because we got information. That's dispute resolution. But yeah, we've mostly done digital arbitration and mostly focused on the sharing economy marketplaces. So Home Advisor, Angie's List, Thumbtack, Turo, Outdoorsy, those are all big customers of ours. And we help resolve disputes mainly between 2 users on their platform, but also between users and the platform itself.
Right, that makes sense. Well, and then of course, there's always the challenge. How do you get the respondents to respond? So do you have sort of a mechanism in place, or how do you handle that issue that often comes up?
That is absolutely the biggest challenge. It makes a big difference that there's a referral from a entity that they have some affinity with, that they know. Nobody knows who Fair Claims is. I mean, at least not the average consumer. So it just, that's how we're able to get them to sign up, is through the connection with those marketplaces. And the marketplaces also hold them accountable and say, hey, look, you're a member of this community. We don't know who's right or wrong, but we think it's important that you all work this out. They often will give them a chance to work it out themselves. Hey, you haven't been able to work it out. Your alternatives aren't great because you'd have to go to small claims court, even before COVID. But as we've been discussing, that small claims court can be tough. So here's another option. And so it's them providing the incentives and the option and things like that make a big difference.
Well, and then do the arbitrations tend to be text-based, or do you include video hearings?
We do live hearings and also text-based document-only arbitrations, and it sort of depends on the use case and complexity of the dispute and things like that. But we actually switch from video to audio. So we will, we may reintroduce a video for higher claims, but what we found is that people don't necessarily love video. It's not the best user experience always. They worry, especially users who are less tech savvy, they worry about getting on the video. They're not sure, it may not work. They have bad bandwidth. They have to, people don't always want to be on screen. So we switched to audio.
Yeah, That's interesting. Isn't it funny? But again, it goes back to user-centric design. You find out what people like, what they don't like, but it makes sense. It is funny in the age of COVID, everybody thinks, oh, we all want to Zoom or we all want to FaceTime. Not really. Like
People are
there are
touching
times
it.
it's like,
People
no,
are
actually, I
touching
don't
it.
want to.
I don't
Yeah,
have to comb my hair,
no way. Yeah, no, absolutely. So what other sort of new things do you see you talked about dispute prevention, and there's a lot of discussion about the use of AI and building in sort of different AI mechanisms to help people kind of filter and figure out, like, here's my problem. I don't know what my options are. Have you looked into that at all, or is that something on the horizon?
We have some AI, but the reality is I'm not that into AI. I think that the most important thing in dispute resolution is that people feel heard. I don't think people can feel heard by a robot. I just don't think that works. And so I'm not a huge proponent of it. I think AI can be used for certain workflows, automating certain processes, getting certain insights. So over time, we've gotten very interesting analytics, but I don't believe in it as I don't believe in robot arbitrators and mediators at all.
Yeah, I have to tell you, I mean, think about I know my last dealing with a chatbot, like with a bank or credit card, is maddening, like maddening. So I don't, it can make anyone crazy. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but it's an issue that is, of course, on top of mind for a lot of people. So
Look, I'd love for somebody to prove me wrong.
yeah,
I suppose at some point AI could get more advanced, but I think as long as people know they're talking to a robot, it doesn't work. They want the human. There's no replacement for that human empathy.
right, right. And being heard is just so important when it comes to these areas. Well, listen, Stephen, I promised I wouldn't take up too much of your time. Thank you. This has been a great conversation,
Yeah.
and I look forward to watching how everything unfolds with Fair Claims. So thank you so much, Stephen Kae with Fair Claims. Thank you very much.
Great to be here. Thanks so much.